Hello everyone, I'm Marianne Taylor. I am the house detective. I'm an architectural historian and I research the history of houses and buildings all over Australia. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the design, the use and the current transformation of this building behind me. I am up here in Mackay visiting family and I could not come here without doing a video on my absolute favourite building in town. It is the former Sugar Research Institute building. It is the most perfect example of modernist architecture, but it was also designed by Queensland's most famous post-war architect, and the use of the building is so incredibly significant and contributed so much to the history of Mackay and Queensland. You're going to love this one. Now, the history of Mackay is inextricably linked to the sugar industry, but I won't get into too much detail about that today. But by 1949, the industry had decided to establish a sugar research institute. And Mackay was chosen out of the top three sugarcane growing regions, which was Mackay, Cairns, and Bundaberg. Mackay was chosen to be the site of the headquarters for this institute. That was because not only was it the largest out of those three places, it was also geographically the centre of those places. Dr. Bill Kerr was appointed as the first director of this new institute, and that was just a fantastic decision. He was pretty much already crucial in bringing science to the sugar industry. He had introduced a number of different scientific techniques and methods, all of which aimed to improve the production of sugar. Shortly after the institute was established, they contacted Dr. Carl Langer, who was a very well-known architect in post-war Queensland. They contacted him and invited him to produce some designs for this new institute. Now, Langer was he's now one of the most famous post-war architects in Queensland. He is famous for his modernist design, and he is best known for designing buildings to suit their location and to suit the Queensland climate. So Langer designed the new Sugar Research Institute, but initially only the east wing and the central section of what you see now was built, and it was built by Don Johnston. Langer also designed the landscaping and the residence for the director, which I mentioned was Bill Kerr. Apparently, however, Mrs. Betty Kerr was unhappy with aspects of Langer's design and requested a number of changes. And I just absolutely love that story. You could just imagine this. I presume she would have been a housewife in that era, questioning one of the most prominent architects in Queensland's design for a residence, and rightly so too, because the person using the house needs to have some input. One of the things she requested to be changed was that when apparently in the initial design, you could see straight from the front door into the kitchen. So she didn't like this idea. And if her kitchen was anywhere near as messy as mine gets, I totally understand that design request. But anyway, her and Langer apparently produced the final design for what was the director's residence. It's so cool because that actually survives on the site as well. So it helps tell the whole story of the initial establishment of this institute. The Western Wing was actually designed by a different architect, but based on Langer's original design. It was designed by Harold Vivian Marsh Brown, who, if you've watched my video on the Art Deco buildings in Mackay, and if you haven't, you definitely should, you will know that name very well because he was just the superstar of architecture up here and designed tons of the buildings in Mackay, including a lot of the beautiful Art Deco ones that survive. So he designed that side, and thankfully though, it is almost identical to the other side, which produces this beautiful symmetrical building that survives today. Another important feature of the site is the row of palm trees along the front fence line. Now, these were planted in 1954, And the number is important. There was originally 58 palms, and this represented the number of different mills that were involved in the research institute. So the number of different mills that were contributed to and benefiting from the research that was being undertaken here at the institute. So I just think that's such a nice little token, and you might just kind of glance at the palms and not think much of them, but it is actually a really important part of the history of the site. In 1973, a conference facility was added to the site for hosting talks and sharing the information that was being researched here and discovered at the Institute. And that also survives on the site, which is really, really cool. And it's a slightly different design to the main building, but it's still quite sympathetic and it ties in very nicely. As I mentioned, Langer was known for his climate-based design. And this building is a fantastic example. It also explains why this building is on an angle to the road that it's on. Instead of facing the road directly and being parallel to it, it's actually built on an angle. And that's because it was designed to face north. This was because Langer had very cleverly worked out that by facing it to the north and by designing the windows as he has, that in the summertime, it would minimize the light and hence heat coming in through the windows of the building. But in winter, it would maximize the warmth and the light coming in through the windows. So the siting of the building on the block is incredibly important. And as I said, reflects Karl Langer's dedication to maximizing the natural climate control of his building. So a very interesting feature. And again, something else that you might not even think about if you're just looking at the building. You might not wonder why it was orientated that way. Externally though, it is the most beautiful example of modernist design. So modernist architecture, post-war modernist architecture, was all about minimalism. So if you think of the fussy decoration and over-the-top cast iron and stonework and fretwork on Victorian era and Federation era buildings and houses, this is the complete opposite. This was all about stripping off all that exterior decoration. It's all about a sleek appearance with horizontal lines, minimal decoration, and a simple form. You can see that the design in this building actually results from the functional components. So the windows and the entry are what create that striking design rather than fussy decorations that have been stuck on or anything like that. It's all about minimalism. It's all stripped back and simple. When it was first completed, it was described as a monument to the Australian sugar industry. And I'm going to tell you why it was so important to the sugar industry, but I think you'll agree it's quite an impressive monument. When it was completed, the complex contained this main building, which had offices, storage rooms, a boardroom, and it also had a workshop out the back. It had a residence for the director, as I mentioned. It had a residence for the caretaker. It had massive paddocks behind it where they actually grew sugarcane that they used in their research. But the most important spaces in this building were the laboratories. This is where the magic happened. This is where they undertook all the research into growing sugarcane and producing sugar. Oh my God, so we were filming outside and the principal Jim just came out and said, do you want to have a look inside? So of course I went, yes. I tried to contain myself, but I was pretty excited. So he's given us the magic swipe card to have a look around. So let's go have a peek. So the Institute investigated ways to improve every single aspect of sugar production, from soil quality to crop health and yields, to the harvest, to transporting, to scheduling, to milling, to output. Every single aspect was researched. Its goals were to increase the efficiency of every single aspect of the process, whilst also reducing costs, waste products, downtime, and harmful emissions, whilst also maximising the amount and the quality of sugar produced. And I can tell you right now, it absolutely smashed these goals out of the park. After 25 years, the yield of sugar was tripled. That's right, tripled as a result of research that had been undertaken in this institute. So you can see why it was such an important part of the sugar industry and why it is a monument to the Australian sugar industry. It is absolutely mind-blowing to think of how much of an improvement that is, and the flow-on effect of how much more income the cane farmers would have been getting, the input into the Mackay economy, into Queensland's economy. It's absolutely mind-blowing to think of the impact that the research done in this building had on the industry. And I'm sure some of the results would have been implemented all over the world where sugar is grown as well. So absolutely astounding. And like I said, an incredibly important part of Queensland's history. The Sugar Research Institute continued to operate out of this building until 2006. And I only just found this out this morning. It then relocated to Brisbane and it still operates. So it's still around. They're still researching ways to improve the sugar industry, which is just incredible. It was then used as commercial office space until 2016. It then sat vacant for a while, and that must have been when we visited last in 2020. We came and had a good sticky beak around, and it wasn't in operation as anything then. It's now the Catherine Macaulay College, so they have reused the buildings and turned it into a school, which is just the best outcome for this building because there's nothing worse than a heritage building sitting empty. So it looks like it has been done beautifully as well. They have kept all the significant buildings, the main building, the conference centre, the residents, they're all still here. The sugar cane paddocks are not. They've been converted into a car park and other uses, but that's okay. So wonderful to see that the complex is in use and being looked after, and that hopefully will ensure that it's around for hundreds of years to come. So as you can probably tell, I could keep talking about this building for hours. It's so fascinating and it's such an incredibly significant part of Mackay and Queensland's history, but I will stop there because I don't want this to be too long. But I will pop a link in the description to the Queensland Heritage Register entry and some information on the amazing Sugar City Art Deco and Modernism Society website, because they have done some great articles on Karl Langer, this building, and heaps of other buildings in Mackay, so check that out. So I hope you can see now why I absolutely love this building and why I just think it's the most perfect example of modernist design and so important in the history of Mackay and Queensland. Thank you so much for watching, and please, if you haven't already, click that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. It was then used as